again, go right here, palm up, and you're going to go into, so for limited internal rotation, we're going to go using the dowel going down, so if they are in this position, they're going down. And so the biggest thing is that I see here is your arm, for your left arm, wants to go into external rotation, and you got to make sure that you stay along the plane of the shoulder. So I would actually extend that elbow as you go down, so that way you're basically allowing this humeral, the humerus, to act as an axle in this rotation. And so let's say that you're limited in internal rotation down there. We're gonna hold this, and then you can go into your contract, relax down in this position. Yep, up, and then go ahead and try it more there. Internal rotation. Cool. And so with this, I would, when you guys break out into groups, get yourselves in that position where you felt that internal rotation, like kind of stiffness, and then that's where we can work into. If the hand is like limited there, then I would say this is where I would move up into higher levels of shoulder abduction. So I usually start down here and then move on up. Yeah.
JC, would you have her pronate her hand then? The one that's holding, the one that you're working on?
Yeah, so pronating the arm for this one, it gets a little like, in terms of like the contract relax here, for like, it just feels a little awkward. Like, and then the other thing I see is you see a lot of compensation of like shoulder hiking. So yeah, good point. I think for the manual component, I try to like increase like cause like I have more control over like their scap by controlling with like that proximal stabilizer. In terms of like their home exercise program at home, I'm trying to like limit the amount of like compensatory movements. Yeah.
And then my one caveat to what JC shared there as to whether they're, because you mentioned, right, if your hand gets in the way,
Yeah.
right? I will, before I go to another elevated position, so Maheen, if I was to put you there, I add an adduction component, almost like you're pulling a sword out of the sheath. So I would have you, with this hand, almost like have it down here, and you can turn that hand over just so it's a little more comfortable for you. And then you're gonna drop shoulder back, and then you go into your contract relax there. So I go further and further into adduction, which preps me for getting them eventually in an adduction position behind back.
Cool. Okay. And then, so within that, the first thing I'm doing is like the external rotation contract relax for active and active internal rotation. So I think the component here, like the important component that I'm saying it, but I want to make sure I'm driving home this point is it's a contractor relax to active internal rotation. So it's not like typical contractor relax is like contractor, and then you're pulling into more like stretch, right? The active internal rotation component is where we're getting like the antagonist like kind of force coupling in the shoulder for like helping with the shoulder stabilization, and that's prepping us up for phase 2. And so gaining strength at end range is kind of like we're there, so you might as well maximize that strength and actively try to get there. And the best way I can explain this is for especially, and this can be a good example on Maheen, is that if I bring her arm into external rotation here, like that's her passive external rotation. If I ask her to go externally rotate, she doesn't quite get there. And so I would say that that's like our main goal, and like for external rotation, it's like you're never really gonna achieve it actively. But like our main goal is to try to achieve as much active range of motion at these end ranges as possible, because then you're protecting the joint moving forward. Yes, exactly.
And my threshold for that is 80%. You want your passive range of motion to be a minimum of 80% of your active.
And then, so for this internal rotation one, so number 1 is like you're actively moving internal rotation. The number 2 part, the difference for this one is you have passive assistance that allows like that like you go with more internal rotation. So you're trying to, basically the first thing you're doing is trying to actively go as far as you can. So that way your tissue's learning on how to be in that new range. And then since since you've been there for about a week or two, so my typical progressions for these ones is around a week or two, because at least from what the research talks about of like when to progress exercise, it's typically around a 2-week time point. So I will allow them to try to get more like active assistance with that to try to promote more at the end, and then I'll have them hold there.
It's not cool.
Yeah, so then you're actively pulling there, and while also internally rotating actively.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And then so that's for limited internal rotation. And so with these, we're doing this all throughout like shoulder abduction and across. I'm gonna leave that up to you. It's more of just like this is the exercise that I picked, but the reason why there's only 2 is because this is what I do. Like I start with abduction, then I move over to like flexion to horizontal abduction. Cool. And then now for limited external rotation. So this is where let's think about the adhesive capsulitis person, or even like post-op shoulder. This is where I'll do the Dow low load long duration, and I'll do these at whatever degrees that you want to do, 0, 45, 90. I just want to mention that again, we're doing the palm up for this one, and the main component is making sure that try to keep like a neutral wrist here, and that your direction of force is such that you're not promoting elbow extension. So notice how like her direction of force for this golf club is almost promoting more elbow extension, rather than if you come down here, you're going to promote more rotation. The reason for that is if you're promoting elbow, for your extra rotation, they're limited, and you're promoting elbow extension, what are you activating? Yes, and that's the thing that they're probably irritated with. So that's why I want to like pay special attention to that. Cool. And then, so I would also like just for this one like purpose is just revisit this one here, up overhead. I would play with, especially with post-operative shoulder, especially with those bent guard repairs. Promote more like I don't have a here it is. Scoot over a little bit. There we go. So I'm trying to get the elbow in front of the body on this one. And the reason for that is just because it's less advantageous to that position. But then I will eventually start dropping that down. But that's like super late phase, to get that last little bonus phase too. And then with these again, like Michael showed before, I am also doing these in this preacher position up here, and I'm doing like for later stage doing it in the preacher position. Again, it's impossible to show you every single exercise in different positions, but I wanted to capture at least concepts in order to show you like at least like our progression on how we try to improve like range of motion. All right, and then the last one I want to show is the pec doorway stretch, just because I feel that this is one that
before we move on, the only other caveat I would say is, and maybe you can do this if you do, great, can you show it? Is you already spoke about how in our very previous step, right, is that the rotator cuff was inhibited. And so we give the command to the patient that then they tell their shoulder to externally rotate. Very rarely do I see that they automatically preferentially recruit their rotator cuff. And so I'm using my fingertips. And if you have something better than that, such as like an M trigger or other biofeedback unit, great. But this is a wonderful opportunity to save both you and the patient a lot of frustration later on when you go into dynamic, externally loaded exercises of how to properly recruit external rotator cuff versus upper trap versus posterior deltoid, so on and so forth, right? And You're also, I just want to acknowledge and just piggyback on what we previously talked about when I gave that schematic of the X-sized capsule, and we are in the process of going from just radial lines within our capsule to cross-linking. We are doing internal and external rotation at the end ranges in both directions at those end ranges. And so trying to carry forward the dots and the seeds that we planted before, so we're continuing to promote a different mental framework that you're running as you're going through these exercises. Even though your intent is range of motion improvements, you're working on neuromuscular control, and you're also working on the stability and the cross-linking of your capsule as you go through it.
Perfect. All right, the last one is we're going to do a pectoral